Hi there, do you suffer from knee pain? And that can be in various different positions. Maybe when you're squatting and exercising, or you have high impact aerobics that you're doing. Maybe you're doing some classes online and you're suffering from knee pain. Maybe it's simply that you go for a longer walk and by the end of that walk you feel discomfort in your knee. Or maybe you've been running but you get to so far and then you feel your knees stop you from going farther. And it could be even simply that going up and down the stairs is problematic, or getting out of your seat. So there are lots of reasons that we can have knee pain, but a lot of the time these are the common things that they show up in. A lot of the time it's when we're sitting too much, or we just have really poor mechanics and we have tightness around the hip. So I'm going to give you some tips on how you can improve your knee pain for the long term and to help you with feeling more ease when you walk, run, get up and down the stairs, even getting out of bed without having knee pain. So here are some tips on how you can improve your knee pain. Number one, you need to do myofascial release. You need to release tension in the areas that are holding tension. Now we've got a lot of muscles that come from the hips, come down into the knees, and you've got a lot of muscles from the feet that come up into the knees, or from the knees down to the feet. So there are lots of little pulleys that are pulling in various directions. And even if I was to have something here, some tightness in this side of the leg, you can see even from my trousers, that's going to affect my knee maybe being pulled up this way. Now if I bend my knee now, I'm going to have restrictions. Same thing if I pull up through the front. So let's say our quadriceps are tight. So now you can imagine that the tissue at the front of the knee is now being pulled up. Now when I bend, it doesn't have enough flexibility to allow that knee to go forward. So what you find is when people are tight kind of in this front of the hips, they can't always go down into a lower squat. They start modifying into these type of postures, which then makes our squat pretty ineffective. Also, there could be tightness in the calf. So if I have restrictions in this muscle down here, I'm not going to be allowed to get my ankles to go back so that I can go deeper into the squat. And again, we start adopting these kind of patterns. Sometimes you'll see people when they squat that they end up kind of going into these patterns. And this could also be a culprit of the muscles along here just not being long enough to allow the knee to stay in that parallel position. Sometimes it's the muscles here. Now, how can you combat that? Well, we've got lots of videos, if you look at the description below, on how you can release tension in the areas around the hip and around the knee and around the ankle. And that can be a first starting point. But what's really important is for us to understand individually what you might need. Some of you are more fit and active, some of you are a little bit more sedentary, and so there's different considerations that we need to make depending on your situation. So if you are wanting more tips on how you can improve your knee pain, I would recommend contacting us below, direct message me, or click the link to find out more about how we can assess what type of pain you're going through and give you the direct tutorials that are going to help you find more relief in your knee pain. So I'm going to give you one really simple tip that all of you can try today. And it's a really easy thing if you've got a tennis ball, a hard ball, or even just a rolling pin that you have at home. And if you do this and you find that you ease yourself into more better walking, better running, then that will be a good starting point for you to realize that just releasing a bit of tension in your legs can have profound effects on your joint mechanics. So we're going to come down onto the floor and we're going to put this little lacrosse ball underneath your calf. Now that can be a tennis ball, it can be a rolling pin, which is quite a common thing that we might have in our homes. I'm just going to roll up the pant leg. So I'm starting at the top part of the calf, and I'm just going to draw down my leg into the ball. And there's a couple of areas here around the calf. The outside edge can be quite tight. Maybe it's right through the middle. Maybe it's a little bit more on the inside. So just have a little play. Mine is very much on the outside. Put your hands supported, and some of you might struggle to get down onto the floor here. So what I would recommend is sitting in a chair and maybe put like a coffee table out in front of you or a little bench, and then place your calf on there with the ball. So you might be sitting up doing this. But what you want to make sure of is you're sitting up really, really tall And you're allowing the pressure to fall into the ball. So what are we actually doing? We're giving a deep tissue massage to that area. You're kind of doing your own self-massage. And in some areas of the body, you might want more of a gentle massage. And in some areas that are a bit thicker, like the calves, we can afford to go with something a little bit harder. So just resting there. And I'm kind of waiting for that bruisey tenderness to subside a little bit. So you might find it's very uncomfortable when you first start it. And the more you practice it, the easier it'll get. And your body will start getting used to the feeling. And then you'll feel a sense of melting release. And then I would just move down that leg. Now we typically say about 2 minutes to work through some of these areas. It could be longer, it could be shorter, but a minimum of 2 minutes is a good place to start. And then you can kind of work from there. And when you do this regularly, what you'll find is those areas become less tender. There becomes a less need for you to do the release. And then we've got to look at stability and balance, and are the joints actually knowing where they are in space? Because sometimes that is the case. Sometimes we need to practice the right mechanics to activate the right muscles in the body. Sometimes we're just using the same default muscles all the time. So make sure you do both legs. And the other place that's really helpful, if you do have a tennis ball, and a tennis ball works really well to start with, or if you've got like a hard dog toy, or if you can get a hold of a lacrosse ball, it works really, really well. We're going to come up to the top of the hip. So I'm kind of on the side padding of my hip, just below the hard bone of the hip. And there's a lot of muscles here, kind of from the front of the hip and around to the side, that cross over and come down into our knee. So it's quite a hot spot here. So you might start more near the front of the hip and see how that is, and then come around to the side. Now, what I would say is if you're suffering from any bursitis, hip replacement, please consult your doctor before you do any of this, or you can contact us below and we can advise you whether it's a suitable practice for you to do. So I'm just going into that side part of my hip around here, and also a little bit into the front. So have a little play around there as to how that feels. And sometimes this area can be very, very tender. This is part of the top part of the IT band. It's kind of where all the groups of muscles from the back and the front kind of converge. And we tend to get very tender and compressed there if we're not rotating the hip very well, if we're not using the front and the back of the body very well. So it can be kind of a little hot spot. We hold energy. So again, 2 minutes on that area. And another great place to go with this little ball is just very gently on the outside of the knee, not right on the bony bit, but just as we come down. So this is the bottom part of our quadriceps, and they can sometimes be quite tender around where there's a lot of pulling and torsion around the knee. So tread carefully there. And again, if you've had any knee replacements or ACL repair, anything like that, any trauma in the knee, just contact us below or contact your doctor before doing any of these. The other place that's really nice to do is on the inside of the knee. So sometimes people suffer from the pain being on either side of the knee. So we would just, and I'll show you on this side, I just lay my knee on that ball on the inside of my knee. So these are some really, really simple strategies. There is a lot of other areas that you need to consider, like the front of the thigh, the hamstring. The hamstring groups actually loop around the front of the knee. So they're really important to look at. And then we would want to look at your mechanics. How are you squatting? How are you lunging? How are you stepping? What's your gait pattern like? What are your feet doing? Some of you might have things like bunions or rotated in arches, fallen arches. So this can affect the mechanics of the knees and the hips when we're walking. What kind of shoe wear are you working with? So I really want to help people with knee pain. It's one of the things that we do that we really are passionate about, is removing pain from people's lives. And a lot of time, if you haven't had trauma, a specific injury, it's just mechanics that are built up over time that create wear and tear. So if we can combat the tightness in the body, the restrictions, we can build back better foundations of movements, then we can start building stability and strength. What often people do is they move right to strength. I'm just going to squat and lunge and run, without actually considering what we need to do first to be able to do these things. So If you're interested in learning more about your specific knee pain, please click the link below, contact us direct, and we will advise you how best to go forward. We have a couple options available, but I'm happy to give lots of free advice that might help you along the way. And in the meantime, check out the videos that I've put in the description, and it goes a little bit deeper into some of those myofascial release, and let me know how that goes for you. I hope that works really well, and I hope that's really helpful for you. And please subscribe to our channel if you want to have more information and more tips on how you can live a more pain-free life. Thank you.